Greetings, Padawan. So let's get into Module 2's lecture notes, shall we? So you're going to start off by reading the Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 chapters in your book. And then the slides really do have everything in them that I want you to know. So read the slides. Wink. Wink, wink. Okay? So read the slides. Just to show you what they look like. Here is, I don't know if this... hoping it's recording, God only knows. But you have the buzzwords for information warfare, cyber terrorism, and cybercrime. You know, these are the definitions that capture what we consider to be cyber terrorism and digital terrorism. So definitely read through, the chapter and then read through, all the different things that you need to know and, what we're looking for, what we consider low level, what we can consider infrastructure reliance. These are all very, very important concepts. Information attacks, website defacement, cyber plagues, viruses and worms, DDoS attacks, right? Intrusions. So this information is critical. So be sure to read it because you will need to know this information. And then the other chapter, is it 3? Make sure I'm opening the right one. Well, this chapter is all about why people commit cybercrime. And so I have to say that, my weakness really is probably, I would say, this area because I don't have a psychology background. But this information is important because it tells you the why, what motivates people to commit cybercrime. Mostly, we assume that it's because of money. But really, at some level, people make a choice and they say that the risk is not as bad as they think, and so the reward is more substantial and alluring. So they make a choice to do this kind of crimes. And people are motivated by money, people are motivated by power, people are motivated just by, the pleasure of being able to do it. So both very important chapters. Definitely the PowerPoint for the first PowerPoint, really sort of captures what we look for from a criminal justice perspective, sort of laying out what it is we're looking for and what it is we need to bring to justice. So definitely read these 2 chapters. And then I've added some extra stuff in for you to look at. So from 2020, some cyber statistics. The big 5 stats are right here, but definitely read this whole article because it really is very interesting and sort of lays out in a very nice way the kinds of attacks that we see, the most popular attacks that we see, and then gives you some information about industry-specific crimes that we see, and then how much money gets spent on security, when a breach is made. And then I updated it and gave you one for 2021. And so this also is a really great article, and you can, you can drill down to some of this other information, but it talks about, the thing that we want to sort of take away from both of these articles is that a lot of money and a lot of time is spent, once something is hacked, right? And if we put that money and time into prevention, then we don't have to put that money and time into recovery, right, and bringing people to justice. Because as you'll learn in this class, it's very hard and it takes a lot of time to gather information. And that was one of the reasons that we looked at the Dread Pirate Roberts case first, right, because look how much time it took them to catch him and how many people they put on the project and how much time they spent infiltrating the dark web and infiltrating Silk Road and finally getting him in a position where they could capture him. So it's not easy and it takes a lot of time to catch cyber criminals. So these 2 articles are very interesting, and they sort of break it down into nuggets that we can digest. I have here an article written by the Army, and it talks about anti-terrorism specifically, and what behavior we can consider suspicious. And if you're going into a career in criminal justice, and you're going into this field, these are tips that are handy for everybody, not just the Army, but everybody, and they're definitely worth taking a look at. And then we want to look at what happens when cyber attackers win. What happens when they win? There's a small Colorado city that paid cyber attackers. What is the risk when we pay ransom, right? Which is really what we're paying here. What are the risks and what are the benefits? So that's an article that you'll be reading. And then you have a 3-part series, and be sure to do them in order, 1, 2, and 3. And it just talks about, sort of a global perspective of what's going on. And although this information is from 2020, we're going to be talking about it. You had received if you haven't yet, you'll receive an email about, something that's going on today, like literally today, that's impacting the world. So, take a look at this information and get an idea of sort of the global perspective of cyber terrorism, and, sort of where our hands are tied and where they're not tied, and where we can have some movement for action, and places where we're limited in acting. So definitely 3, you need to watch all 3 or read all 3 pieces. So that's your work for this week. And really the bottom line that I want you to leave with is, where are we globally with cyber terrorism? What do we know? What don't we know? Do we tell people what we don't know? How much time and how much money does it take? Who has to be involved in order to fix or to eradicate cyber terrorism? It's not an easy fix, and the technology is complicated. The technology, as I think I've probably said a million times already, it changes every day, and so there's no quick or fast solution. And so what is it that we can do to prevent cyber criminals from taking hold? And then but then if we haven't been able to prevent them, how do we stop, right? And then if we can't stop them, how do we catch them, right? So when we think about hacking and ethical hacking, we think about building secure systems, breaking them, right? An ethical hacker's job is to break secure systems, because if they can break them, hackers can break them. And the purpose of doing that is to make the software stronger, to make the process stronger, right? And then building. So build, break, defend, right? And so you always want to be thinking along those lines. How do we make our systems stronger so that people can't break them? And we hire people specifically to break things so that they can be made stronger, because you'd rather have somebody who's employed to do that than somebody who's not and has, whatever motivation in mind for doing it. So pay attention to what you read this week, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say about these things in Flipgrid. Be well, Padawan.